Hi there. I'm so excited to welcome you to the Arthritis Life podcast, where we share arthritis life stories and tips for thriving with autoimmune arthritis. My name is Cheryl Crow, and I am passionate about helping people navigate real life with arthritis beyond joint pain. I've been living with rheumatoid arthritis for 20 years, and I'm also a mom, occupational therapist, video creator, support group leader, and I created the Room to Thrive self-management program. I am so excited to help you live a more empowered life with arthritis. We're going to cover everything from kitchen life hacks to navigating the healthcare system to coping with friends who just don't get it. Seriously, no topic is going to be off limits on this podcast. My interviewees and I share our honest stories of how chronic illness affects our lives. This includes discussions about mental health, sex, shame, pregnancy, body image, advocacy, self-acceptance, and so much more. You'll hear stories from all ends of the spectrum, from a person who's living in medicated remission from psoriatic arthritis to somebody living with severe mobility restrictions and severe pain from rheumatoid arthritis. You'll hear how people manage their conditions in different ways, like medications, mindfulness, movement, social support, work accommodations, and so much more. You'll also hear from rheumatology experts who just get it. We'll dive deep into the science behind chronic pain and what's the latest evidence for lifestyle changes that can help you thrive with arthritis, including exercise, sleep, nutrition, stress reduction, and more. This is your chance to sit down and chat with a friend who's been there. Ready to figure out how to manage your arthritis life? Let's get started. I'm so excited to have Carrie Bradshaw back on the Arthritis Life podcast. You might remember her from episode 147, from marathon running to double hip replacements and back, Carrie's story. Welcome, Carrie. Can you let everyone know where you live and what is your relationship to arthritis?
Hey, Cheryl Crow. I'm so glad the band's back together. Yeah, I live in Houston, Texas, and I met Cheryl Crow a year ago at the Johnson & Johnson Healthy Voices Conference, and we hit it off. Yeah, I had both of my hips replaced, like Cheryl said, due to arthritis, because I had something called hip dysplasia, which causes arthritis in young adults. So I ended up having both of my hips replaced in 2022 and 2023. And I was able to get back to training and running, and I ran the Boston Marathon in April.
Yeah, amazing. And so, yeah, if people want to hear your full, diagnosis and treatment journey with OA and congenital hip dysplasia, they should definitely go back and listen to that episode because you didn't know you had hip dysplasia.
Correct.
You just knew your hips were hurting. And so how did
Correct.
they diagnose that? Just as a reminder.
Yeah, just to go back, I was 40. I was born with hip dysplasia. I was an athlete, played soccer, never knew I had it. I did have aches and pains in my back, especially like growing up and then after kids and even when I was pregnant, but I kind of just thought it was normal. And for running, I kind of just let it go until it got to the point where I couldn't walk anymore. And my the hip was locking up. And that's when I went in and got imaging done and they diagnosed me with hip dysplasia. And because there was arthritis, I couldn't preserve my hips. I needed to get hip replacement. But yes, like Cheryl said, I never knew. I found out at age 40 when I really couldn't walk. And yeah, our doctors told me I'm a marathon runner, and many doctors told me that I would never run again with hip replacement.
Yeah, your story really is incredible. And just to make sure I review this, the kind of arthritis that can come from hip dysplasia or congenital hip dysplasia is osteoarthritis. So it's like the localized arthritis at that joint as opposed to the more inflammatory, full body, like lupus-like condition of like rheumatoid arthritis, where you have fatigue and inflammation of like maybe the heart and the lungs and the eyes. So it's a different kind of arthritis. And that's just sprinkling in a little arthritis education.
Correct.
Yeah. So at last time we talked, you had been training for the Boston Marathon. And today I wanted to catch up with you and find out how it went. But first of all, for those listening who aren't runners, can you explain why is the Boston Marathon so popular, or kind of what is it famous for?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of great marathons in this world, but Boston is just it's so special. I consider it like the Super Bowl of
Yes.
marathons. It's very iconic, has a lot of history. I love New York City Marathon too, the New York City Marathon, but Boston, there's just something special about it. And I ran it in 2015 before kids and thought I would be back soon, like after kids. And then everything, with the hips and COVID, it took me 10 years to get back there. But yeah, like I was just saying, it's just for the runners, the energy is amazing. The city shuts down. So it's on Monday. It's always on a Monday. Most races are on Saturday or Sunday, most marathons. This one's on a Monday always on Patriots Day in Boston. And the whole city shuts down and they come out. And so the crowds, the people, the whole city comes together. It's awesome. And the energy is just amazing. Yeah, and I just like I said, it's iconic, special, has a lot of history, and yeah, it's a blast.
That's so cool. I thought of that question last minute, but I realized I used to run a little bit, but not marathon levels, which were like 5Ks. And now this year I started running again, partly inspired by you, partly inspired by my strength training and just wanting to get more fit. But point being, it's even if you're just a casual runner, you probably heard of the Boston Marathon because it is, like you said, like the Super Bowl of marathons. But I wanted people who maybe didn't know anything about it to understand like the prestige. Anyone can't just run it. You have to run a fast time to even qualify, right?
For the most part, yes. In my case, this time I was gifted like a golden bib because
Mm.
of my story. So
Mhm.
there are mostly, yes, like I qualified it for 2015. Most of the time you have to qualify, but they have a small percentage of charity runners. So technically, if you want, I mean, you could also qualify by, getting fast, but you could run with the charity. And some
Okay.
companies and brands get special bibs. And somebody through Johnson and Johnson, the company that made my hips, was able to gift me a special bib to be able to, run it after my hip replacements.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. So how did the race go? What are some of the highlights and maybe lowlights? Because no marathon is a picnic usually.
Right. Yeah. So highlights, my family and one of my best friends, and my aunt and uncle flew there to support me, and my surgeon, Dr. Stocks. That was cool. It was so special having all of them there to support me. And just, it was like my victory lap. I felt like a victory lap, after everything I had been through with my hip replacements and the recoveries. Just like I said, the energy in Boston is incredible. Getting to see them on the course was awesome. And then my coach, Meb Keflesky, he won the Boston Marathon in 2014. He was actually on the live broadcast on ESPN during the race, and which is cool. It just all these weird science gifts kept
Amazing.
lining up that my coach then Meb was asked to be on the broadcast. So when I finished, he gave me my medal, which was cool. I'll have to get
Wow.
you a picture. Meb gave me my medal, and then we went up to the photo bridge, like this huge bridge where they have all the TV cameras and different media outlets. And we went on ESPN or we went on ESPN live to talk about my story and how he coached me. So that was pretty fun. And then just celebrating with my friends. I mean, I'm leaving out the running part. The running part was great until it wasn't. At
But it sounds
yeah, the first 15 miles were great and so fun. And then I fell down. I tripped because there's so many cups and it's like, yeah, like wet cups. I slipped. Luckily, I didn't hurt my hips. The sweet man stopped and helped me get up, I can't find him. I wish I could thank him properly. And he helped me get up, but that kind of shook me up, but I was able to keep going. Saw my family. And yeah, after mile 15 or 16, the wheels started to come off. And that's so Boston is known for hills. It's called Heartbreak Hill. Heartbreak Hill is at from mile 20 to 21, I believe. But there's 4 or 5 hills total, 4 hills called the Newton Hills. And they start, I want to say, is it at 15 or 17 and go to mile 21. And at that time in a marathon, you are exhausted. So it is a heartbreak. It's so hard. So when I hit the hills, I remember looking at my family at mile 20.5 on Heartbreak Hill, and I was like, never again. And that's very common. It's like having a baby.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
never, and it was like, this is never again because it was painful. But I knew I would make it. And there were people, my friends and Ben, my husband told me that, my friend Ann and Ben told me that There were people like hunched over on Heartbreak Hill, like leaning over the railings, like looking like they were just going to collapse.
Oh,
It's so intense and so hard and mentally hard. So
mhm.
that was a low light, but also a highlight because I got to see my family and friends
Yeah.
and just running it. And then, oh, one of the best highlights of Boston, whether, for me and for everybody, is at the very end, you take the famous right on Hereford and left on Boylston. And Boylston is it's probably a quarter of a mile down, maybe quarter to a half of a mile down Boylston. You see the finish line, and the street is just packed.
Mhm.
So many people watching and cheering, and you feel like you're like a celebrity for a minute.
Well,
Oh,
you are.
yeah, Boylston is really special. Just hearing the crowd, seeing the finish line, it's just this iconic end of the marathon.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is me projecting, but I feel like if I wonder if you felt like pressure because, you had gotten you have been able to represent hope to a lot of people who've gotten
Like,
a hip replacement, who might still want to stay active, whether that means marathon running, whether that means dancing, whether that means, whatever that looks like for them. And I feel like that would feel for me like a lot of pressure. Like I would want it, but then I would also be like, I want to just be able to just, if I need to stop this marathon, I don't want to feel like I'm letting down a bunch of people. Did you feel that pressure?
yes, I was so nervous. And it's people were like, Carrie, you've already won. And I'm like, I felt, yes, because a lot of eyes were on me and I was running to give a lot of people hope. In my situation, I did feel a lot of pressure and anxiety and nerves, more so than I did when I ran it in 2015. I knew I would get across the finish line, whether that meant I had to crawl or walk or, use a walker. But it was the pressure, yes, the anticipation, and yes, the fear of letting people down.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was overstimulating.
I can imagine. I mean, with all the people and this and just the lead up, like you've been training for
Yes.
so long. Like how
Yes.
many, I don't even know if you can count like how many months you had planned or
It was I found out about a year, less than a year out that I would be running it, but I didn't start officially training. I was already running until the fall, or I guess, yeah, I started building up in the fall. But yeah, you put all your energy and, heart and soul into this training and this goal, which leads me to my next point about a low light. When it was over, I actually struggled with, it's typically called the post marathon blues, but it felt like it can be depression sometimes. And it hit me really hard for a couple months after the Boston Marathon. And I was really sad and almost felt like, all right, now what? I put my heart, this has been like my dream. It's been my why for over 2 years. And now it's over. I've put everything into this. Now what do I do? And I feel like after I finished and got back home to Houston, was able to finally start to process some of the different feelings and what I went through for the last several years to get to that point. Like I think I kind of pushed them away because I was so focused on getting to Boston, and I was, I had this goal, and nothing, I was blocking everything, all my feelings out. And once I
Mhm.
finished it, there was the letdown, like the come down, but also, okay, now it's time to actually process the last 3 or 4 years.
And do you mean like the recovery from your surgeries and all of that?
Everything leading up to
Yeah.
surgeries, the diagnosis, not the fear, all the stages of grief.
Yeah, it helped you in that time process. Did you go to therapy or did you talk to friends and family or read things or listen to podcasts
Um,
or all of the above?
yeah, no, I kept trying to fight it. I should have probably seen a therapist.
Mm.
I felt like I was fighting it and I almost felt embarrassed that I was feeling so sad about something. I felt like I should be so happy, and I wasn't.
Well, that sounds so much like my postpartum depression.
Yes.
Sorry, it took me so long to figure out that's what it
Yes.
was. Yeah.
Yes, my mom joked, and I say joke in quotes because it's a dark joke. She's like, Carrie's going through her postpartum depression. It
Yeah.
felt like that. Yeah. And I was like, I felt guilty and ashamed and embarrassed that I was and I kept trying to fight it and shake it off. And it just kept lingering for 2 months.
Mm.
Eventually it passed, and I was able to kind of process a lot of my feelings during that time. I just needed time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I think that resonates, I'm sure, with many people. Like I was saying, I relate to that with my postpartum experience where you're like, objectively, so many things are good about the situation, but I'm not feeling good about it. And then you think, well, what's therapy even going to do? I finally just went and I got really lucky with a home run with my first therapist, but you don't have to wait until things get worse to go to therapy. Like if you're struggling at all, it's okay to ask for help. Like even if other people in the world have it worse than you, because that's what stopped me for a long time. What do I have to complain about? You know? And
Yes.
but objectively, everyone has it better than someone else, and everyone has it worse than someone else. So that can't be our metric for deciding whether
Right.
to go to therapy.
I'm looking back at if it ever happens again, which I mean, it could to a certain degree, but not to the extent of how I felt after Boston. If I had to do it over again, I absolutely would have talked to somebody. I did talk to a friend whose sister was an Olympic athlete in another country. And she said her sister went through it after the Olympics. It's very common with Olympic athletes. I want to say Michael Phelps. I started kind of searching online about it, and a lot of professional athletes, after a big buildup like the Olympics for years, their Super Bowl or whatever, it's over, they lose like their sense of purpose. That was part of it, but there was a little more for me because I was coming back from such a emotionally, exhausting and a hard time in my life. But she told me that some professional athletes, including her sister, struggled after the Olympics with depression.
It's so common. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to say that I'm telling you should have gone to therapy. I was just thinking of anyone listening to feel like we're giving you like a permission slip if therapy is something that might help you. But it could also be like reaching out to friends, hearing other stories, realizing you're not alone. That can be very therapeutic too. And like you said, just the therapeutic value of time. I mean,
Right.
sometimes my therapist said sometimes emotions are like a wave and like you could try to beat it back, you could try to make it go faster, but like it's just going to crest and do its thing. Like you can't control the wave.
Right. And I remember, so Boston was April 21st. And I remember I started crying 2 days after, just like I was emotional.
Mm,
And but I didn't cry when I crossed the finish line. Started
yeah.
crying. It just, things started hitting me. And then when we got home, I remember I left my suitcase out with the clean clothes, not the dirty clothes.
Oh,
I
yeah.
left my suitcase away for like over a month. It was like symbolic. I don't know, on
Yeah.
some level. And then, so that puts us at May, the kid in school's getting out with my kids. And then the summer hits June. And I don't think I got out of it until the end of July.
Mm,
So it was more than a couple months. And I remember thinking, like, in July, around July 4th, all right, this is not just like the post-marathon blues. And I talked to another friend of mine, and he had sent me some articles about it as well. And, I kept trying to force myself, just keep running and setting new goals. And I do have new goals that I'm excited about, but that wasn't helping. It's like you said, time was the answer.
Mm.
Letting myself, that's one of my big pieces of advice for anything in life really that you're going through that's challenging, is just let yourself feel it and don't put yourself on a timeline. It's not linear, the healing, and
Yes. Yeah, and I think this isn't even what we didn't even plan on talking about this. But this is great. This is why I like having a kind of a skeleton outline, but then we
Yeah.
can go with where the conversation goes, because I think there's an analogy I'm trying to cobble together in my head, but this is something that I've seen when I was trained as occupational therapist and like physical rehabilitation, where it's like, let's say when you're still hospitalized, like inpatient setting after an injury or surgery or something like that, and you're like, okay, I'm focused just on being able to walk again or being able to whatever. And it's like you're so right. They don't necessarily process the trauma, what's happening to them, till they're like, just focus on one thing and put everything else in the back burner. And then at some point you have to get back to like your quote unquote regular life. And then that's when things like people say, like, everyone brings you flowers, is supporting you like right at the acute stage of like an injury or illness. But then like when you really need the help is when you're like, you got that first initial goal met. And then now you're like realizing that you have to integrate your old self.
Right. Yeah. Like when somebody's like grieving, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, it's I forgot to say, by the way, just I'm always trying to imagine, like, when I listen to podcasts and people like don't define what they're talking about. A marathon is 26 miles, by the way. If you didn't know that. 26.2. Okay. And then kilometers, because I did realize that like over 10% of the listeners are not in the US. So that's 42.16 kilometers. 42, basically 42.2 kilometers. So if Google is right. So
If that's correct.
yeah.
46.2 and 42 point something.
So that is a very long time. And can you remind me, your surgeon said, I think out of the hundreds of surgeries he's done of hip replacements, he's had maybe a couple people run or do marathons.
So I think he's done over 10,000 knee and hip replacements. And I can't remember the exact amount for hips, probably more hips than knees. I think he's had a few run half marathons, and maybe he had 2. I can't remember if I was the third or if there were 3 run a marathon, but he's never had anybody, do the Boston Marathon. But he was the only doctor, just to go back to the whole, not to bury the lead about the surgeons, he was the only one who believed I could run again. And I made him, he backed it up. It wasn't just, he's telling me what I want to hear. Now I can go run. He backed it up. But he had the courage to say that. And there's no guarantees. And he supported me from before day one, before I went into surgery. And that was so special and emotional when he flew out there for me.
That I can only imagine. And I think people listening who might be, know that there's a hip replacement surgery in their future. I know it's actually a little bit more common with the population of people in their 20s or 30s who had juvenile idiopathic arthritis. So that kind of arthritis that's affecting you while you're in your growing years, if it started when you're 5 or 6, sometimes that can lead to the need for hip replacement surgeries more so than like rheumatoid arthritis, which I have, which normally affects more like the small joints of like fingers and toes and wrists and stuff. But point being, no, they might be wondering, is there anything you did during when you started running again? Did you do anything differently than somebody who didn't have hip replacement surgery? Did you have to follow certain like precautions or rules, or did you do certain stretches? I'm just curious. If you have ever felt completely lost or utterly alone while trying to navigate real life with rheumatic disease, listen up. I am here for you. I created an educational program to help you go from overwhelmed to confident, supported, and connected in a matter of weeks. And it's called Room to Thrive. After earning a master's in occupational therapy and completing hundreds of hours of additional training, I created a step-by-step guide to help you truly thrive with rheumatic disease. This is the only program I know of that's designed to improve quality of life for people living with inflammatory, autoimmune forms of arthritis, like rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, non-radiographic axial spondyloarthritis, Sjogren's disease, and more. During the self-paced lessons, you'll learn how to manage pain and fatigue, cope with stress, navigate relationships, and continue doing the things that matter to you and bring you joy. The goal is really to help you improve your quality of life and learn how to thrive with your rheumatic disease right now, rather than waiting for a distant day when it might be cured or healed. I really created the down-to-earth, practical, heartfelt resource I wish I had had when I was first diagnosed at age 20. If you want even more in-depth support, you can join the 12-week Room to Thrive virtual support group, where you'll be surrounded by people who actually get what you're going through, people who will provide the encouragement, validation, and support that you deserve. Each group is expertly moderated, so you don't have to worry about the kind of misinformation that spreads like wildfire in the free-for-all social media groups. If you're on the fence, don't just take my word for it. Here's what Katie had to say in March 2023. I was lost and overwhelmed with my RA diagnosis. It felt overwhelming to know what to read, what to do, how to spend my energy trying to research on the internet. Room to Thrive did that for me. It's been like getting a crash course in my diagnosis along with a community who gets it. To see all the details, including the dates for the next support groups, go to the link in the show notes or bit.ly/thrive room with a capital T and capital R. You can also just email me anytime at info@myarthritislife.net. And don't delay if you're interested, because each group is capped at 16 people or less in order to make a small, intimate group atmosphere. Thanks so much for your time, and I can't wait to get started with the next groups. And I can't wait for those of you who are interested in the self-paced option to go ahead and join that at any time. Bye-bye for now.
Yeah, so there's two methods, or there might be a third, but the most common two methods for a hip replacement are called posterior and anterior. My doctor does the posterior, which is kind of on the side, and that's a little bit of a longer recovery in the first 6 weeks versus the anterior. But every doctor, just go. My advice, is to choose the doctor, and each doctor has their preferred method. Choose the doctor you're comfortable with first. So at 6 weeks, so I had the posterior method done. So for the first 6 weeks, you have to lay on your back. You can't cross your legs. I couldn't sit on a couch. You have to be very careful because there's risk of your hips coming out of socket. After 6 weeks, you go for your first checkup, and you get those, assuming everything is okay, those precautions get lifted. So you don't have to sleep on your back anymore, which is great. I think it took me 6 or 7 weeks to start walking normally. And I gradually just built up my walking. And at 12 weeks, to where I'm walking without a cane or a walker. At 12 weeks, you have your next appointment, or I did at least.
Okay.
And at this point, assuming everything's okay, I got cleared to keep walking. I'm still doing PT. I could start adding in a little bit of jogging, but nothing intense. And no training per se, no intervals, nothing fast, because it takes 6 months for the prosthesis to fuse to the femur bone.
Ah, okay.
That sounds really fancy. So that it's a big stem, and it has to get, fused to the bone, and it takes 6 months, and a lot of people rush it. And even if most of the time they're okay, I don't think it's worth it. I hear from a lot of people who are rushing it before that 6 months. And I think you just need to allow everything to fuse properly, because you don't want to compromise that. It's not worth it if you're playing the long game.
It's like a critical window. Yeah.
So I was very careful. I waited 6 months to start really training, did a little bit of walking a lot. Started strengthening my muscles. And once I got to 6 months and everything looked good, I got the green light to start training. And that's when I started running more. I'm still doing my PT exercises. And I ran the Houston half marathon that January. So a few months later. And
So did running feel different to you on your new hips? I mean, it's kind of a tough question.
At first, yes. Yes. I was scared too, because I wasn't sure what my limits were. I was afraid to hurt something. I remember I was sore, like on the outside of my hip when I was at the beginning. But as I got stronger in my body, as the time went on, that kind of went away, and I was getting strong. My other muscles were getting stronger to help protect, my core and my hip. My core was stronger to help protect my hips. Eventually, no, now sometimes I forget I even have them. So
Right.
yeah,
That's
at
the
first
goal.
I felt them. I know. I do have a little pinching pain in my right hip flexor, but other than that, some days I forget that I have them. I still get a little scared, pushing myself and running, but yeah, I mean, it's been a game changer.
Well, that's such a hopeful, story for people who choose to, again, be active again after, when taking your recovery seriously, following the precautions. And again, not to say that every single person listening could do a marathon on bionic hips, but it's just knowing that for some people, like in your case, it was possible. And I think you're helping rewrite the story for other people too, right?
I hope so. And I hope so. I've had a lot of people reach out to me saying that I've given them hope. I will go back to what you just said. You made a good point. I want to just clarify, and Cheryl does too. Just because you get a hip replacement does not mean you could run a marathon. It's kind of like pregnancy, I say, because I've always been a runner. I was a marathon runner. So I was already running a lot when I got pregnant. So my doctor was okay, assuming everything was a, healthy pregnancy. He was okay and even encouraged me to continue running throughout my pregnancy. Now, if you've never been a runner, I don't think most doctors would probably encourage someone to start running while pregnant. Imagine it's similar to the whole hip replacement thing. Maybe wait a little longer. Start training for maybe just work on walking first. I wouldn't go straight to trying to do long distances if you've never been a runner. That was part of the reason why my doctor felt comfortable with me trying to get back to it.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's a really good point. That is the advice, at least when I was pregnant 10 years ago, over 10 years ago
Mhm.
now. They said that, yeah, don't, you'll continue to do the activities you used to do before, but don't start like a brand new thing. And
Right.
I think that's where like becoming, I don't know how to say this, like poster child or like inspirational person in the community of people with chronic illness can be a little tricky sometimes. I'll speak from my own experience, but also I'm imagining from yours too, where you're like, sometimes people are tempted to say things like, "Well, if Cheryl," for example, for me, it's so much simpler physically than yours, and that I can swing dance right now. I can swing dance. 22 years into rheumatoid arthritis, but there were times when I couldn't swing dance, and there may be times in the future where I can't. So I would never say. And swing dancing is like for me a partner dance where someone's pulling and pushing on your finger joints, which can be really tender and really hard. But I would never say, well, just what's your excuse? Just because you have arthritis doesn't mean you can't dance. Look at me. I can. Like, I don't want to say that to people because everyone's, even if we have the same diagnosis, we don't have the same bodies. We don't have the same limitations. So I'm guessing you're probably
Right.
sensitive to that too.
Yes, and I do get a lot of people who reach out to me and ask me. And I just say this is what I always make sure to clarify. I do not replace a PT or a doctor,
Oh,
obviously.
yeah.
I'm just sharing what worked for me in my experience. And I will say I had both of my hips done. My recoveries were very different for each hip,
Mhm.
which just shows everybody's recovery is different. I had a longer recovery on my right hip, which was the second one to get done. I had tendonitis, that hip flexor still kind of pinches. Every recovery is different, everybody's body, everybody's background. So yeah, I mean, maybe if you want to get back to playing like, sports, but you haven't done it in many years, it might take you a little longer to get your body prepared for that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I just want to, yeah, I don't want anybody thinking, oh, yeah, we had Carrie got her hips replaced and ran the marathon. So I'm going to go get my hips replaced so I can run the marathon. And no, it's
yeah,
like
it's
with your dancing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's such a tender thing because you wanna give people hope, but then you don't wanna be, like, unrealistic or whatnot, kinda like a little tightrope to walk sometimes, and, you know, the other thing I know that you had said maybe you might wanna talk about is about advocacy, like learning to become an advocate for yourself and maybe for as a mom as well. We had kinda talked about this a little bit before recording, but what would you like to share with people about your journey towards I'll say those of us that are probably like people pleasers, right? We're like nice, happy people that we want everyone to be happy, you know? So it's hard to advocate sometimes when you're like that. So what do you want to share about that?
About being able to help others. We're
Yeah,
talking about,
yeah.
well, I started documenting my journey after I had my first hip replacement. And basically, I guess it's been a 2.5, 3 years, 3 years since the first one. I've had a lot of people reach out to me and people who have heard about my story who are going through their own hip problems reach out to me, which is great. And I've been able to help a lot of people and help them navigate and give them hope that, like you said earlier, that yes, the recovery can be tough, but it's so worth it to get your life back, whatever that means for you. And rather than living in this chronic pain, because I understand that it's scary to go through with the surgery. But my point is, I've been able to help give hope to a lot of people who are nervous about getting their hips replaced. Even if they're limping around, I felt the same way. I delayed it and delayed it. I had an aha moment, like where it was like, that's my sign, which made me finally get it done because I go trick or treating. I was limping around the block, trick or
Yeah.
treating with my kids, and I had it scheduled a week later and I was going to cancel it. But I was like, no, I can't even trick or treat. What am I doing? I'm getting the surgery. So
Yeah.
it's hard to pull the trigger and like actually go through with it. It's scary because you don't know how long the recovery is going to be or how painful. But I'm able to tell people. Somebody yesterday messaged me asking, so was it worth it? Two people did actually. And I said, absolutely, 1000%.
Yeah.
Without no regrets. Like, absolutely. Go. If you're in pain, do it.
Well,
Or if you're thinking about it, don't keep delaying it because in another year from now, just think you could be living the life you want to live.
yes, and this is just me being an occupational therapist, but definitely haven't specialized in this, the joint replacement area ever. But what happens in the body is that your body's always trying to compensate. Like your body and your brain are smart in many ways, right? So if you have some sort of imbalance, whether that's from a severe osteoarthritis in your hips or even mild, over time, all the little tissues and joints and muscle, everything's trying to figure out how to compensate for that. But the problem, so the longer you get into the quote unquote deformed position or not symmetrical or not ideal position physically, then when you get that, finally you get that joint replacement surgery, all the little muscles, tendons, ligaments around there have already had this. They've already been like, okay, we figured out how to adjust to this the best we could, but now we're in like even in like a wacky, weird, warped position. So you're starting from a worse place when you've let it get really bad. Now, sometimes people don't even know how bad it is. It's not like
That's how I was.
you
That's how
literally
I was.
had a kid and we're running marathons on severely osteoarthritic, which is
And I had other signs, and looking back, like my lower back was compensating for years. I had
Yeah.
2 stress fractures in my lower back because it was having to pick up the slack for my
Yes.
hips, and I would ache a lot. Like my husband, I can't remember if I told you this. My husband Ben remembers like many years ago, like 10 years ago, back when I was running training for marathons before kids, maybe even after our first child, I would wake up in the night with this pain or like this uncomfortable feeling, and I would be doing these crazy stretches on the bed, trying to like with my leg pulling it because I just needed some sort of relief. And it was
Yeah.
because my hips were deformed. They weren't built correctly. And one other thing I was going to tell you that, leads back to your point is after I got my hips replaced, my gait changed. But
Yes.
leading up to it where my body, it took a while for my body to adjust. Everything was so sore, and my gait has changed for the better. And, before I had my hips replaced, I used to supinate, which means you kind of run on the outside of your shoe.
So like the pinky side.
It's like the outside of my running shoe. I didn't mean to, but if you looked at my running shoes, the left side would be kind of worn down. If my foot would go left, it was because of my hips, I'm imagining, I'm guessing, assume. Now that doesn't happen.
Wow.
Interesting stuff, right? I mean, yeah, so my body was compensating. And after the surgery, it was like, whoa, what's happening now? Now you're changing everything again. And it took a little while for all the parts to, get used to all of my original parts to get used to the new ones.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's a totally normal part of the process. But, if you have been made aware by your medical team that like a joint replacement is really in your future, obviously take their advice, but just know that for many people, like your case, like delaying it is not the most helpful option. Sometimes it's really worth it to just get it over with.
I've actually started doing coaching consults with people who have a lot of
Amazing.
questions. Yeah, it's really cool because I can give my undivided attention to them for an hour on the phone and help them navigate the process. And the same thing from a couple of them. They keep pushing it. I think they're in denial. I felt the same way, hoping for a miracle that something will get rid of it, fix it. And one guy I talked to, super sweet. I'm like, look, there's never going to be a good time. I asked him, like, what's your next year look like? He has kids. I went through all this, and I'm like, I get it. It is such an inconvenience on so many levels, but there's never going to be a good time to go through with something like this. Assuming your doctor supports it and your insurance, will cover it. I say knock it out now. So in 2 months, you'll be so much happier. Or 3 months.
It's really hard. It's like the devil, like it's hard for people to, even if they're in pain. Like I even feel it sometimes that I'm the most, I've had so many great experiences with Western medicine with my rheumatoid arthritis, but anytime I have to change my medication regimen, I'm always a little nervous. And I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just wait 2 more weeks. So I know this is what I'm used to. And so the unknown is scary.
The unknown.
But it can become less scary when you can think of these examples of people where it's been so helpful, like in your case,
Well, I have a funny little story to tell you. Yesterday, somebody reached out to me and asked me about, I'm 50, my hips are going, acting up. Was it worth it? Are you happy you did it? And then I went and checked his profile, and I'm like, holy cow, he was a Navy SEAL, and he's asking me, asking if it's worth it. And I'm like, wait, you were a Navy SEAL? And he's like, this amazing, tough man who's been in tough situations. I don't even.
If you can get through that, you can get through a hip replacement. Like, dude.
So I go, my recovery was tough. I'm not going to lie, but I'm pretty sure this will be a piece of cake for you. And he is still nervous about potentially going through with it. And he's a Navy SEAL, or he was.
Wow. I'm laughing not because that's human nature.
The unknown. He wanted me to tell him that it was going to be okay.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to
Wow.
do that, but it just shows we all have the same fear of the unknown. It's a big deal.
Mhm.
Surgery or
Yeah.
changes in life.
I mean, it is legitimately, I don't want to downplay it. Yeah, like any
Yeah.
surgery, there are things that could go wrong 100%. Like it's very legitimately scary. I don't want to invalidate
Right.
fear, but you can help mitigate that fear by, reassuring yourself of the times when it went that does typically go well. And then also remembering that if there is some sort of complication, because that can happen, that you will persevere and you will, get
Yeah.
through it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I was gonna, there's some questions I have at the end. I call them rapid fire questions, but they're actually like long questions.
I love rapid fire. I was
Yes.
trying to make them concise.
Yeah, I'm saying myself.
Oh,
I'm
they're
always
going to
like,
be long answers. Okay, got it.
yeah,
Okay,
I always
long
like make them
rapid
long
fire.
anyway,
Okay,
which is okay because we got time. But yeah,
okay.
I know you went through this last time, but I find myself like even year to year, month to month, my answer changes a little bit. What are some of your best words of wisdom for somebody who might be newly diagnosed with either hip osteoarthritis or congenital hip dysplasia?
Okay, my main first piece of advice, I have a couple, is do your research, interview more than one doctor,
Mm,
find your care team and your support team. Do advocate for yourself. I didn't just listen to the first two doctors I went with who
yeah.
would have replaced my hips. They probably would have been great, but I kept going. I advocated for myself and what my goals were. And I got lucky. I found Dr. Stocks, and then I also researched PTs. So
Mm,
either from your surgeon to your PT to your support team at home. Make sure you have a full, good care team and support team around you, positive people before and after, during and after this surgery, because you're going to need to rely on some people and you need to have people who, are supportive and don't bring you down, basically. So, yeah, so find your team, do your research, advocate for yourself, form your team, I guess. Second is once you get the surgery, set mini goals. Like you were saying about occupational therapy, your patients would be so focused on the next step. That's how I got through it all. Is maybe that's getting out of bed to the bathroom, maybe doing my little ankle pumps the first couple of days to get the blood flowing. And then
yeah.
eventually you get a few more simple quote unquote exercises, but they're really hard. But you just take it hour by hour, day by day, zoom in, and
Mhm.
then pretty soon the hours are turning into days that you get through and you have a little goal, do your PT exercises, take your shower, whatever the goal is, but focus on the little goals and milestones along the way. And that goes for running as well. Even if you don't have a hip replacement, like focus on the mile you're in. Don't think about everything that's ahead and celebrate the little your achievements, even if they seem small. It's important to celebrate and acknowledge the little wins that you have along the way, whether that's for me, finally using my walker to walk down the street or
Yeah.
not using my walker anymore or taking my first shower or doing my PT exercises and they didn't hurt a lot. And then eventually walking a mile, running a mile, and eventually then running the Boston Marathon. Like I'm jumping, but I didn't
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
from surgery bed to Boston Marathon. You have to break it up,
Right.
celebrate the process, the journey.
100%. Honestly, that's one of the things I loved about becoming an occupational therapist is that it almost like they would force us in school to break down a simple goal into even more parts than you could think possible. And you're like, oh, yeah, to bring, like, one of them was literally write down in 15 or more steps the steps that it takes to get a cookie from the table to your mouth. You realize, oh, it's not just put your hand down. It's, oh, your extensor muscles, like your, oh my God, wait, biceps and then triceps, your triceps extension. Then you have to do wrist pronation. Then you have to do finger extension and then reach out with your thumb. It's every single little thing. And your brain has to also have an ideation cognitively of what is it? What is my goal? My goal is to reach and grasp this cookie, and I have to sustain my attention on that task. And it's so many little things. You're like, wow, you don't take things for granted when you break them down.
Right.
Sorry, little nerding out.
Yeah, that was the same, feeling after you can't get out of bed. Oh my God, I can't even just imagine trying to scoot and use your arms, but you can't move your leg. Like you're trying to keep everything straight because if it goes in just a little bit, you get the shock wave. And then getting to the bathroom and Everything was
Oh,
so hard that, early on.
I
But
can
yeah,
only,
you take it, you learn to, you get a different perspective and
mm,
you have
you know,
a greater appreciation.
100%. I mean, I have to say, I told you this before, but I had hip pain for the first real time in my life for the last 2 weeks, not related to my rheumatoid arthritis as far as my PT and I can figure out, but it's from some like pelvic floor instabilities and stuff. But, and then kind of exacerbated by maybe running on top of those,
Mhm.
that kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back. But I told her I couldn't believe just rolling over in bed, how hard that was, or how much pain that even though I knew academically, it was different to feel it, you know?
Right. Because, yeah, all of a sudden now this task or movement that you never even thought about gives you pain.
Yeah. Pain is it's a great teacher, you know?
Right. Yeah, there are a lot of overlaps. Yeah, but it doesn't even have to be a hip replacement or a surgery. But yeah, just like when I had a big run today and it's instead of thinking, oh my God, I have this many more miles to do. I don't know if I can do it. That's what my brain was freaking out. I have to remind myself, just stay in the smile. Don't think about what's
Right.
ahead.
Well, that might actually bleed perfectly into the next question, which
Okay.
is, do you have a favorite quote or inspirational saying for tough days?
That one, stay in the mile you're in.
Yeah.
Like I just explained, just stay and try not to think about everything you have ahead. Stay in the interval or the mile you're in. Sometimes when I'm running now, I remind myself because I have bad running days too. I have great days, I have bad days, and I have
Mhm.
okay days. On the bad days, I try to remind myself when it feels hard and I'm just not in my rhythm that I get to do this. Taken away and stolen for so long. And now instead of, oh, I hate this, it's, I get to do this again. Just
Nice.
reminding myself that this is a gift. And yeah, just I'm guessing like I'm strong,
Mm,
strong, be strong, you're tough. I feel like there was another one, or maybe be brave, push yourself, be brave, be strong. Those just simple little reminders to stay
yeah.
in the hard times when I'm running, when I want to quit.
Yeah. Or even just dealing with pain in
Right.
general, whether it's from running or anything else. We can do hard things or I can do hard
Yes.
things. That's one of mine that
Yes.
I really like.
Yes, I used to say that to myself. You
Yes.
can do hard things. Yes. I
I
love that.
love
I
that one.
feel like there's
Um,
another one. If it comes to me, I'll let you know.
oh, no worries. Do you still have to use things or get to use things like, heating pads, or do you have any like gadgets that you use to in your daily life? Or because you've had the hips replaced, it's kind of fixed it to some degree. So I wasn't sure.
Well, for training and running, yes, I have a foam roller.
Ah,
Sure. And I have this special ball to roll on the psoas muscle. A lot of people probably
yeah.
don't know what that is, but it's like inside how would you describe it? Inside your abdomen?
Yeah, I have a really hard time like describing things in visual words because I have to see it on the model.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's like the groin area, back from the back to the
And this deep
groin.
muscle can get really tight and it actually can cause
Yes.
back pain. And so to get in there, like the PT has to dig into your abs to get to the iliacus and the psoas, but mine gets really tight, especially on that right side with that had the tendonitis. And so I have this special hip ball that I can roll on in that area. And it sort of loosens up the iliacus and the psoas, which relieves some of that back pain that I might have.
That's
So the
okay.
ball, the foam roller, I actually just ordered this really fancy hip hook by the
Ooh.
same company as the ball. Have you seen it?
Oh, wait, I have a Theracane. It's a cane that goes around that you can use it to like self-massage your back or your psoas.
That sounds
But
good too. This is like some fancy hook. You'll have to look it up.
okay, it's probably fancier than the one I have is not too fancy.
This is like a $200 hook. And I've been wanting it for a year and I finally was like, I'm going to try this. I need
Oh,
a
I've seen
terrified
ads for this. Yes, I've
Yes.
never tried it.
I'll let you
Yeah.
know if it's worth it. I
Okay.
got it on Amazon. So if it's not worth it, I'm sending it back
Yeah.
because it's $200, but I'm going to try it. And apparently it gets in there deeper than that little ball and it gets in that iliacus and the psoas and can relieve that tension.
Okay, good to know. And
Yeah. I'll let you know if it's worth it.
okay, perfect. Yeah, we'll have to have you on a third time.
Yeah,
So,
come on,
yeah.
whatever. Yeah, but there are some other little tools. I have a little scraper tool for my muscles, but yeah, basically, even if I didn't have the hip replacements, all of these tools are excellent for all of us.
Yeah, especially that I remember the first time I ever went to PT, I'd partially torn my MCL on my left side from playing soccer. about 2 years after my RA diagnosis, actually. And it was the first time I ever actually hurt my knees playing soccer, which is wow, because it wasn't even college soccer. It was like just a pickup game, just for fun. Anyway, and they were like, whoa, your IT bands. They were like, your IT bands are crazy tight. They were like, those are like what's something that's like a, I don't know, like they're just, were like a rope. Yeah, they were, yeah. They had, I don't know, that was the first time anyone ever massaged my IT bands. And I was like, oh, ouch. But also,
yes. Yeah, they get super tight. Yes, and it's so uncomfortable.
yeah, but then it feels good after. Totally different note.
Fair.
Do you have a favorite book or movie or show you've been consuming recently?
You know, I haven't had the time lately. I've been, marathon training has taken over my life. And then obviously kids and normal life stuff. I haven't sat down and watched a show, like a whole series yet. Yeah. I've watched Elf the other night with my kids. I love Elf. That was a movie, but I haven't. What else? I feel like there might
Do you listen to music while you're running or podcasts or no?
And I like podcasts. I listen to music. Yes, I love my music. I even I turn Christmas music on at the house right now. But yeah, I guess the last movie I saw was Elf. But after my first hip replacement, I watched all of Schitt's Creek. Have you seen it?
That's so funny you say that. I'm on the last 4 episodes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my favorite show.
It's so good.
That show reminds me of my first, I started it like on the first night I got home or the second day maybe, and watched how many seasons are there? 7?
6, I think.
Yeah. I watched all of it and like, I love that show. Amazing. That's my favorite show.
Oh, I love it. It's up there. My favorite is Parks and Recreation.
I haven't seen it.
It's a great one. Amy Poehler. She's so us. Like she's us.
Okay. Awesome. No. And books. I've had some audiobooks, but I haven't sat down and read a whole book in a while. I read Meb's book, my coach.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Nice. That's amazing. No, I'm always just getting ideas from people on the podcast. I think it's just fun. I listen to a lot of pop culture podcasts like that give me ideas of music to listen to or podcasts or movies and stuff like that.
Which podcasts are your favorites?
I like one called Pop Culture Happy Hour for getting ideas. And there's also one that's really special. It's called Every Single Album, and it's by The Ringer, and they talk about different pop girly albums. And sometimes men too, but mostly, like Sabrina Carpenter, Taylor Swift, Ariana Grande. They review like in detail every song. I just love that because I'm such a nerding out about.
Yes, like the new Taylor Swift songs, they got all into it.
They have one episode for every one of her. It started like every single album, like one episode per Taylor Swift album. Yeah, so it's called, I'll put links to all these in the show notes.
What about books and shows?
Well, so okay, this is terrible. My husband and I, when we have to like turn our brains off, and so we watch like terrible reality TV. I shouldn't say terrible, but we watch, Love is Blind, Survivor.
A lot of people love that show.
It's just, honestly, we pause and we like talk about it. We'll talk about, like how could she have communicated better, or how could he? That is actually a way we bond. And then Survivor is also it's also fun, like from a psychological perspective. And prestige TV wise, I absolutely love Severance and Andor. So Andor I'm not really normally into Star Wars, but it's really well done. And Severance, I'm also not normally into creepy, like weird, suspenseful mystery things, but I'm usually into like happy things, like like Elf. I love Will Ferrell. I watch SNL. We watch SNL like every week. Yeah, and Saturday Night Live. I listened to Conan O'Brien's podcast. He was a writer on SNL. The old night talk show host, the old days.
And then what about books?
So I'm really into romantic comedy books and like romance books right now. So I've been reading. There's so many. Actually, I'm thinking it's December. I got to put together my like best books of the year. But it started because I joined a book club in Seattle called the Radical Romance Book Club, and it's about giving love story, like representation to love stories that aren't normally shown in the media. So they read books that are about people who are like LGBTQ or people who have disabilities or health conditions. So one of the ones was a woman with rheumatoid arthritis dating a guy who has anxiety. So they each have different challenges, and some of them are, people different racial backgrounds and different. It's really neat. So I've gotten into that. I was kind of judgmental about romance novels. I thought they were all just weird at first, but then when I started reading them, I'm like, oh, these are just like romantic comedies with a little bit of, depending on the one. Sometimes they have steamy scenes, like content warning for, sexual content, but majority of it is just, will they or won't they, like enemies to lovers, are they going to get together or not, I
Well,
really
that's
enjoy
fun.
those.
Yeah. Well, so when do you find time? Because you're busy. When do you find time to read?
It's actually been like probably the only habit that I've had ever since I was in like second grade to now is every night before bed I read. That's just,
Awesome.
yeah, I read on my Kindle and I've done it. There's pictures of me reading my Kindle on our honeymoon. My husband took.
That's awesome. And,
No,
and that's awesome.
yeah,
You're a
but
good role model.
yeah, but I will say there were a couple years, guess what? I slipped up and guess what I did before bed?
Bro.
Doom scrolled the internet.
Yeah.
Do not
Yeah.
recommend that. That was like 2020 through 2023. Like I had a few years. So I should say I did not stay with it for a little while. I stopped and then I was like, what are you doing? Because you think, oh, I'm still reading. I literally justified to myself by saying, I'm still reading. I'm just reading the internet. That is not what I was like. I was, but it's
Right.
not the same. So
It's addictive. Yeah.
it helps me like at least usually 20 minutes to an hour I'll read before, and it helps me kind of get into relaxed state
Yeah.
and go to sleep. But
And do
yeah.
you put your phone somewhere else so you don't get distracted by
Yes.
it? Okay.
Yes. I have to. And I actually I find now that I like to focus on just one thing. Like I have that kind of HD type mind that if I don't force myself to focus on one thing, I'm just going to keep like opening this window, opening that window. But like reading,
Mhm.
for some reason, I lose myself in the plot and I don't want to get distracted.
That's awesome. That's the best feeling when you get into a book.
I know. And I'm just really easily pleased. I really like a lot of the books I've been
I
reading.
love it. That's such a good break too from
But
like it's
it
good for your
is.
mind to just escape.
Well, and I only have one child, so also my husband, I can play like tag team, and he's 11 now, so he's a lot more. You're still in the thick of it with younger kids too, so sometimes
Right.
it can be harder to. You're just so exhausted at the end of the day. But even reading depends whatever the ritual is. For me, it's
Mhm.
reading that helps me quiet,
Yeah.
my mind, and then it can't be too good of a book. I figured this out because if it's too good of a book, they're too like romance ones. They're great because part of the genre is it's going to have a happy ending, so you don't have to like worry what's going to.
Yes.
Whereas I started reading some other genres, and then I'm like, if it's a mystery, I will not stop myself,
Yes.
and then
It'll
I'm
be
like,
like hurry in the morning and you're like,
yes.
hyper
So
focused on it. I need to
I'm
know
not
what.
allowed to read anything that's like suspenseful, otherwise I will not go to sleep. But sorry, back to the questions. It's so funny. I want to start a spin-off podcast that's just like just talking about books.
Yeah,
And
I would love it.
that'd be so much. So last question, what does thriving with hip replacement look like to you? Or what does it mean to you too?
Basically, what I'm getting to do now, like I said, I get to do this. I made it through the surgeries and recoveries, and I'm still, trying to take care of my body and strength train and, do my PT. And I'm getting to do what I love again, whether that's running a marathon or running, a 5K. I'm getting to train and not worry every single day, like, when is my hip going to lock up? I'm getting to do what I love without pain. And I know that for the foreseeable future, I'm hoping I get to run for as long as I can.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's so wonderful. And where can people find you online if they want to learn more? Or maybe you mentioned doing some like health coaching or.
Yeah, on my Instagram. I'm not on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, and my handle is Bionic Runner Babe.
Yes, I
Yeah.
love that.
And her name's Carrie Bradshaw. That's why I love hanging out with Cheryl Crow because
I know. It's so funny.
I love our names together.
That's like our initial bond. We're like,
Yes.
oh my gosh, we have to
Yes.
meet each other. That's so great. Well, thank you so much. And we definitely, talked about even more topics than we originally planned. And it's just, I'm glad to hear that kind of post marathon blues
Yeah.
that you're feeling, wave has passed and that you're, on an upswing now. And thank you for that vulnerability and the honesty of
Sure.
sharing.
No, I'm hoping it maybe can help somebody who might be going through it, whether it's a marathon or some other life event or achievement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, and congrats also just on being the first person to complete the Boston Marathon with double hip replacements, right?
Yep. So I'm running the Houston Marathon in 5 weeks on January 11th, knock on wood, God willing, assuming I don't get injured. And I am trying to set the world record for the fastest marathon with bilateral hip replacements. But that's a whole other thing, and I'll make it quick. I applied in July to set this record because it's never been set. They told me it would take 12 weeks to process, and then it went up to 20. We're now at 20 weeks yesterday, and it still hasn't been approved. It should be fine, but it's like applying for citizenship. Yeah, well, sure. So hopefully it gets approved. And then in January, assuming I have a good day and I'm healthy, hopefully I can set that record and start something and encourage other people to try to break it.
Well, I will be watching from afar, and 11 is my lucky number.
Mile?
Yeah,
That's your
that'll be
mile.
my
Did
mile.
you 11 for the
Yes,
next?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so you're mile 11. Okay, good.
Yeah.
You're mile 11. Okay.
But it's on the 11th, and it's
That's awesome. Okay.
111. So I'm like, this is a good sign. It's going to go well.
Oh my God, it is. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're mile 11. That's easy. Okay, I'll be thinking about you at mile 11.
Yeah.
And I can do hard things. I'll use your quote.
Yes. Thank you so, so much.
No,
Well,
thank you. Thank you so much for having me on again. I love hanging out with you.
You too. I wish we lived closer.
No.
Okay, bye-bye for now. Thank you so much for listening. This podcast is supported by Room to Thrive, an educational program I created to help empower you to live life to the fullest with rheumatic disease. In the program, you're going to learn evidence-based tools for managing all the ways rheumatic disease affects your life. And my goal is to help you go from overwhelmed to confident, supported, and connected in a matter of weeks. You can go through the pre-recorded modules on your own in the self-paced course, or you can take the course along with a robust support group of new arthritis friends to support you and cheerlead you along the way. Learn more in the link in my show notes, or you can always go to www.myarthritislife.net. And if you like this podcast, I'd be so honored if you took the time to rate and review it. I also encourage you to share it with anyone you know who might benefit from it. I also want to remind you that you can find full transcripts, videos, and detailed show notes with hyperlinks for each episode on the Arthritis Life website, plus full episode videos on the Arthritis Life YouTube channel. If you have any ideas for content for future episodes, or you want to share your story on the podcast, please send me, Cheryl, an email at info@myarthritislife.net. I can't wait to hear from you, and thanks so much again for your time.